Well, hey everybody, glad to be with you again, and I'm excited about our topic today of how to build a team that runs without you. And our guest today, Daniel Huiet, he's somebody that I've been watching for a while and have interacted with locally and have been very impressed with what he's been able to build. And so I thought I'd bring him to you to be able to learn from him. I think you're going to learn some key things about building a business in a way that truly you can go away from and it's okay. And
Mhm.
so let me just give you a brief background and a bio of Daniel, just so you kind of know where we're coming from today. Daniel's a serial entrepreneur who has started multiple businesses and currently owns and operates three simultaneously in Beavercreek, Ohio, near Dayton, Ohio. He owns Wild Axe Throwing, Great Escape, which is an escape room facility, and then recently opened On Par Entertainment, which is a massive 33,000 square foot entertainment center that features 12 duck pin bowling lanes, five private dart board areas, 27 unique mini golf holes, five private karaoke rooms, public karaoke, 102 self-pour taps, full kitchen, large outdoor patio games, VIP sections, and much more. And I'm telling you, this place is awesome, and it is much more. And Daniel, this is one of the really interesting things, Daniel, that we'll talk to you about is you've actually traveled to 90 countries in
Mhm.
your short life, which has been a major priority for many of your years. So welcome to the show, and
Yeah.
I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, I'm pumped. This is gonna be fun.
So 90 countries. Let's start. I know I've got some other questions I want to ask you, but that when you told me, hey, it's up to 90, that's impressive. So how many have you gone to this year?
Oh, this year just three, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
just three.
gotcha.
It's been a fun year. And I really, there was a five, it's called the Five Stands trip, which is Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, basically
Okay.
the stands below Russia.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't book it. There was a tour, it was very affordable for 3 weeks, and I didn't book it, and then it sold out. So I'm regretting that, but I'm still got my eye. I'll do some more before the end of the year for sure.
That's awesome. So when did this vision or this desire to travel the world like you have, when did that start for you?
Not many people ask that question, so it's fun. I actually wasn't a big travel person. I was big work, work, work my entire life, consume myself in overloading, whether it's school and business and just regular employment. And my mom was a big, hey, you should travel, not internationally, but just she likes traveling around America.
Mhm.
She's like, you need to travel, you need to travel, and I was like, nah, all that stuff. Well, I was with my friend Alex in Hawaii. Our mutual friend Emmanuel had a friend who had a condo on Waikiki Beach in Honolulu that I could stay for free. So Emmanuel's like, "Hey, you want to come out here?" He's not there. I'm like, "Oh, sure, of course I do." And the last day of my trip, my mom called and said, "Hey, just want to let you know I have a brain tumor. Luckily not cancerous. She had a surgery at the University of Cincinnati. Fantastic surgeons there. I think that was oh, maybe like 12, 13 years ago." But it was just I was sitting there and I was just thinking, I was like, what's the message my mom always said? You need to talk, you need to travel, you need to travel, you need to travel, work less. And that's when the goal really, really took place. And I was like, you know what, man, my mom's not that old, life's short. Let's do a travel goal. And the first goal was actually to visit all seven wonders of the world.
Okay.
And which I did, and then the next goal just morphed into 100 countries just because it seemed obnoxious at the time, and why not, right?
That seemed like probably like, how could I ever do that? But now you're only 10 countries away from making it happen.
And yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, the goal was to do it before 40. I'm 40 now, but I might be able to do it before my 41st. So,
There you go.
yeah, I've actually got a plan. I've been working on it lately
Awesome.
to do that.
Well,
So,
so with all that in mind, I think it just cues up this whole conversation
mhm.
because most people would say, how in the world does this guy own multiple businesses and be able to visit 90 countries, right? So
Mhm.
before we get to the details of how that happens, why don't you give us a backstory and kind of share why and how you entered the world of entrepreneurship in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it would have to start from when I was maybe 9 or 10. Something happened in life where I had made the decision that financial freedom, I should say, was going to be a big driving force in my life, and kind of forego and let go of some of the childhood dreams I had, and I chased the almighty dollar. Right or wrong, I did,
Hmm.
and so I was kind of always in that mindset. And when I was 26, I was sitting around, and my friend Jeremy, he was working for a photo booth company. He's like, well, hey, there's this photo booth. And my friend Mike's like, well, I can build that for you. And my friend Jeremy's like, I can do the software. And that night we came up with the name Black Box Photo Booth, and we built the photo booth either that weekend or 2 days afterwards. It was a very short
Hmm.
time period after that. And so it just kind of happened. I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but the overarching goal was just financial freedom at a certain age.
Hmm.
I'm 33, so um, yeah, that's kind of how, that's a short and sweet of how basically I
Yeah,
moved into
but then
entrepreneurship.
by starting that right, then it kind of kept morphing and developing, right?
It did. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop.
You were
Well,
hooked.
maybe it's the personality that I always wanted perfection or always wanted to be better or that I was competitive. It was fun to see where I could take it though. And I went all in on this. And I happened to get lucky. The very first person I talked to was this woman named Kelly, who was the marketing department at the Green. And I remember, and I think I told you a story before. I remember going in there. I was like, "Hey, Kelly, like I've got this photo booth. It's fantastic. It prints these strips out. And what do you think? And she's like, well, yeah, I'll book you for these four events." And I remember I was like, okay, well, I understand. Thanks. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, you will? And so the very first person I talked to, I made $2,400. And that was really eye-opening. And it is luck. It is a bit luck. But if I wasn't there anyways, with
Right.
really nothing, if you think of looking back, I just went up to her and said, hey, I got this thing. You want to buy it?
Mhm.
If I didn't ask, then that luck wouldn't have been there. So that's kind of how that started.
Yeah.
But yeah, from there I just kind of snowballed, and I got more involved in what else can I do in the wedding industry and DJs and party bus, and just started to keep adding things.
And now in our community, you're kind of the entertainment guy, right? You got three different businesses that are in the
Mhm.
entertainment realm.
Yeah,
And honestly, Daniel, I think our community might be pretty boring if you didn't show up and keep building these things.
it'd be interesting. Yeah. Oh, back in the day, there was this really fun place called Captain Bogey's, and they had an arcade and pizza, and they had mini golf, which was fun. They also had water bumper boats,
Yep.
which was just a ton of fun. And I remember that as a kid. And I don't know, just fun it's fun to give back to. In fact, I was just this week I was talking about we could have gone to Kettering where that bowling alley was. And then I ultimately it's like, you know what? Beaver Creek's if there's an opportunity to go to Beaver Creek, it'd be fun to stay there.
That's awesome.
That's where I'm
So,
from.
so why the entertainment industry though? I mean, you could obviously now you know how to start multiple businesses. Why have
Mhm.
you stayed in that lane?
Probably because I'm good at it. And if I had to be honest with you, well, yeah, I'm good at it. And why do something different if you're good at things, you know?
Uh-huh.
I mean, when it comes to traveling, which is a big goal of mine, it's like some people get held up on chase your passion, all that stuff, which is somewhat true, I think. But at the same time, you can do something that funds your passion, that funds your
Mhm.
passion. And the entertainment space has just been good to me, and I'm here. I
That's
ain't going
awesome.
anywhere.
What I didn't mention, honestly, you really have four businesses because inside the Wild Axe is also a pinball
Oh
business,
yeah,
right?
Level Up Pinball Bar, and we have
Yeah.
33 pinballs, 34 arcades. The numbers always change. We always keep buying stuff and never.
Yeah.
In fact, this week I found a Level Up pinball brochure and it said 20 arcades and 20 pinballs. And I don't know when I made that, but now it's 30 some and 30 some.
Wow, that's
It just
awesome.
never stops. But
So, what would you say have been your biggest challenges that you faced by building multiple businesses from scratch? It's not like you just walked in and bought these businesses. You actually have built them from the ground up.
yes, with no, I would say no mentorship at all. And that's not a knock on anybody. I've had great people in my life. I've had great family members, aunts, uncles, parents, and been very loved and very blessed. But no mentorships in the business world. The thing that I think making money has been easy, to be honest with you, for me. The hardest part is managing people.
Mm,
That's been to me though. I mean, some people maybe it's a little bit more natural for them. To me, the managing people has been the most difficult. Always, there's never been a year in 14 years where that hasn't been true.
mm. What is it about that? That is it just finding the right people? Is it keeping them? I mean, what all is into that?
Oh well, I mean, this is advanced right here, but the first person to to recognize the struggle is in the mirror, essentially.
Mm.
The first person is, are you a good communicator? And the answer is probably not, right? Because even if you're a professor in communication, even if this is your field, how many different communication styles are there? How many
Yeah.
personalities are there? They could say 32 on the Myers-Briggs, but even within that, there's multiple branches. So It's very easy to start by saying, well, it's hard to connect. My manager won't listen to me, or well, it's going to start with you, and you're the leader, you're the captain of the ship.
Hmm.
You got to know how to communicate with all those moving pieces and all those things. So, starting with me would be what I focus on.
Hmm.
But I put it this way, this is the best way I can think, because you're married, right?
Yep.
So if anyone's listening, I'm going to ask this question for everybody, and maybe it doesn't apply to you, Chris, but have you ever had communication issues with your significant other? Right? It's kind of a joke because the answer is yes,
No, we
all
have
across
done
the
this
board.
perfectly for almost 25 years, man.
So yeah, and I'm glad you said that. So 25 years, it's a great success story, and it's a testament to you and your wife. But during that time, there's been communication issues, right?
Hmm.
Well, and you guys love each other, and there's an intimate bond there. You guys are life partners. So now take this. Your partner has communication issues. The person you love the most has communication issues. Well, I've got 100 employees,
Hmm.
all with different communication issues that are not my life partner, etc.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's a big challenge, and that's always going to be a challenge. So trying to master that. In fact, just one of our core values is communicate. One of our five core values is communication.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to master that and say, okay, what is Chris's personality, and how do I
Hmm.
need to communicate with him?
Hmm.
And now I go, and what's Wendy's personality? How do I communicate with her?
Hmm.
That's been the biggest challenge.
Hmm.
It's been fun and stressful at times, but that's been a challenge.
But I'm glad you brought that up because I think that while every business has their own challenges, communication is probably a common thread, if not the common thread that any business is going to have, right? Is it's because, like you said, all these different personalities, all these different preferences, backgrounds, even people that, just because of maybe some baggage they've had from previous employers, they may love working
Mhm.
where they are, but they still have some baggage that maybe causes gaps or obstacles to the communication. So
Yep.
that's really good. So let's go to the positive side of all this and say, what have been your biggest, most exciting things of that you've learned or experienced as an entrepreneur?
I would have to say I call my four businesses my babies, right? In a way they are. And I birthed them. I did everything, started them from scratch. I've raised them. We've gone through some tough times. We've gone through some great times. And when you look at it that way, you try to enjoy the journey and enjoying the journey of, I call them my babies, enjoying the journey of watching my babies grow up, and everything we've been through together collectively has been very rewarding and fun.
Mm. Yeah, I can imagine that because I mean, I know just watching you, all the hours you had to put in to build up. I remember talking to you even 2 or 3 years ago when you were building your latest, with On Par, and you're like, I'm not going to travel for several months because this has got to be my full focus. I got to get this done right, and then I can worry about what I want to do with the traveling. And you had to really spend a lot of dedicated time and like hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours probably, right, to get there. And it's a beautiful place, but it took a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, it definitely did, and I think also the wonderful thing is I had this employee at Great Escape that was with me for 6 years, and then he went to the Air Force. He's a younger guy, and he went to the Air Force. And when he left, he said it was really good to watch how much that I've grown. He was talking
Mm,
about me, and I reflected on that a little bit, and he's right. At the same
mhm,
time, it's like, we get so caught up in trying to chase the next thing.
mhm,
But when I look back at even my skill set, and I've actually, it's fun, it's a fun joke, but I call them the twins, and they've been with me for 8 years at Great Escape, my co-managers. And maybe last year or 2 years ago, I said, hey, I just want to apologize. And they're like, for what? I'm just like, for not knowing what I'm doing back in the day, and maybe even now, right? But they knew that my intentions were pure, and that I have their back on everything. But I think reflecting on yourself is important too. We get caught
mhm.
up on the business, 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 and it's like, wait a minute, how have you grown as a
Yeah,
person?
yeah.
And that's been fun to think about.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I guess hadn't really thought about the self reflection part of that journey that you probably have had through this is you probably learn a lot of lessons about yourself as you're building and launching, managing all
Hmm.
these things. So, but actually before we even started recording, you said, "Hey, I haven't even been to work today yet." And I
Yeah,
said, "That's exactly why I want to talk to you."
I felt it would be wrong if I
Yeah.
did.
So it's not that you're not engaged in your businesses, obviously, but what we're talking about is you can get away and do these 90 trips around the world, right? And ultimately to your 100 goal and do whatever you want because you have built your businesses in a way that
Mhm.
can operate without you. So this is huge because a lot of business owners, this is the dream, right? When they
Yeah.
start, and then it becomes a nightmare. And basically, we've probably all heard it said that, a lot of people start a business for freedom, and then basically create the worst job they've ever had for themselves because they're the worst boss
Mhm.
they've ever had in many ways. So talk to us about how have you done this? How have you built your businesses to operate without you being present full time? Because once again, it's not that you're never there. You have it and you are engaged, and maybe talk about how you're engaged versus, being away.
Yeah. The joke that I have with my business partner, I've had this for a long time, is we quit our 40-hour a week job to work 80.
Yep.
And well, I'm not at Great Escape anymore at all. And that's been a journey, I hate to say I'm not at Wild Axe either at all. I'm available 24/7, and I tell them that. And maybe that's not the right answer. Maybe you shouldn't be available 24/7. But I'm not there as often because Great Escape is, or On Par is kind of consumed all that time. But I was actually just talking about this recently with my managers because I keep saying to them the latest thing that I'm being obnoxious about. I said, hey, if we had 100 locations right now, are we doing the processes the way we're doing it right now? And actually, I had a manager last night at 7 o'clock call me out. She said, hey, there's a unique chandelier at the entrance. It's got these pointy glass things, and they're worried that if they dust it, it might come apart or something. It won't, but they have a concern there. And I said, I'll do it. And one of my managers looked at me and she said, but if you had 100 locations, how are you doing this? And I was like, touche, right?
Touche. They're listening, aren't they?
They're listening. And even if I had no more locations, right now, our entire focus is if I have 100 locations. So what does the processes have to look like and all that? And I tell all the staff there too that in school we learned about McDonald's and how they ran their business. Now, McDonald's, the question was, can you build a hamburger better than McDonald's? Well, the answer is, of course I can. I could fire one up right. I don't even cook, and sure, I can build a burger. Then why is McDonald's more successful than you? And the answer that we learned in school was because of their processes, right? If you worked at
Mhm,
McDonald's for 2 years, you can do the processes blindfolded because
mhm,
that's how they do it. So I think if I had to give one answer, but I'll talk a lot more on it, if of how do you do it is, what are your processes looking like?
mhm,
What if I was let's say I don't know, something happened to me where I couldn't even be at work for the next 30 days. What are the processes right now that are established in the business to where, okay, this department knows, oh, this is the process we need to do. We want
mhm,
Daniel's opinion, his leadership, whatever that may look like. But at the end of the day, to keep us chugging along, oh, here's the processes we do.
mhm,
So the first thing I would do is, or I would ask is, what are your processes?
mhm,
Well, on every little minor detail, like the Cheesecake Factory has a standard operating process on their ice.
mhm.
I mean, they're so detailed in that
Yeah.
manner, so you know exactly what to do and what to look for and all those things. So I think that would start probably with that.
Mhm.
That makes
Where
any
did
sense.
you come up with that? Is that something you were taught or something you just kind of figured out as you went along the way?
If I was taught, it would have been 20 years ago, and I don't remember a key moment where I
Yeah.
was taught that exact thing. Well, I can say that one of the most memorable times going for my master's was a supply chain management class. And this is pre-COVID. And it was funny because I remember them talking about in the class, they said, hey, if this, if this part of the supply chain breaks, the whole thing stops. And they never talked about in class, well, what if the whole system stops? How do that's a COVID conversation, which was an interesting thought process on when that happened. But the lesson was he called it the soccer mom dilemma. Okay, I'm going to pull out a calculator here. So soccer mom dilemma. If you have, let's say that you're 99% efficient at a task, right? And we're human, probably not a 90. So if you do a task 100 times, you'll get it right 99, right? 99% efficiency. If you have 10 tasks to get your overall efficiency, you take 0.99 times 0.99 times 0.10 times. That gives you an overall efficiency of 90%.
Mm,
You move that down to 98% efficiency 10 tasks. Now you're down to 80%. We're like,
mhm,
well, 80%, that sounds good. No, that's the bottom industry standard for global manufacturing. You drop
Wow.
below that, there's a crisis. In fact, 80, you're at crisis already. You're trying to get to 85. So one of the lessons I learned was reduce the number of processes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get, okay, we need a process for this, with this, with this. Next thing you know, we have so many processes,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't even list them all because it's just too confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a small business or if you've got kind of a smaller department or let's say you're in that where let's say what I just said to you, you're like, oh, that's us. I would say, how can I reduce the number of processes by half? Because you'll find that that's going to make things more clear for your staff.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to enable them, it's going to reduce confusion and
Mm-hmm.
enable them to say, oh, okay, well, we used to have all these processes. I had these 10 things I had to do here, and now that's only two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a little bit less confusing. Let's do these two things.
Mm-hmm.
So I did learn that in school.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the rest of it's maybe a little bit hard, school hard knocks,
Yeah.
know.
So it reminds me a lot. I read, the E-Myth years ago, and I remember him talking, and what you're saying, some of the things Michael Gerber talked in there was, even if you don't plan to franchise your business, if you had 100 of them, how would we run them right so that when we go from number one to number 100, any of them, they look the same, they run the same, they operate the
Yep.
same, because he's like, then you're going to be better anyway, even if you never
Yes.
multiply, right? So
Yeah.
sounds like that's kind of the what you've discovered in this journey is, let's keep working at this, fine tune it, and even simplifying. I think that's a really important aspect of what you just said is simplicity can scale, complexity just doesn't scale.
It just doesn't scale. I mean, that's the truth. And it's like, and what's going to be frustrating, and a lot of entrepreneurs do this, and they're like, well, I can't let go of control because no one can do it better than I can. I'm like, well, first of all, it's a lie. But second of all, why though? I mean, what is so complicated about what you're doing that people can't do?
Hmm.
And if it is that complicated, how can I simplify that by 50%? Like, how can I make it so easy that my nephew can do it?
Do you think that's an excuse for like maybe control issues?
Yeah, oh, 100%. And to be clear, this was me. I'll give you an example. So I've done over 1,000 weddings. We used to do party bus, DJ, photo booth, just a variety of things in the wedding industry. And when it came to DJ, I tried to have, in fact, I missed a lot of important work trips. I could have gone overseas to do my friend's wedding. And I was like, I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to do that. It got to a point, I remember June 18th of 2016, I had 12 events. Well, I can't be at 12 events,
On
right?
one day?
One day. It was the biggest I ever had at the time, and it's the biggest I ever did in general, my wedding business. Well, you know what I realized? I realized that not only did I not have to be everywhere, but my DJs were better than I was.
Mm,
They had a little more personality. They had a little more spunk. There was something
mm,
about them that I kept getting compliments on from the guests.
mm,
And that was an eye-opening time for me. And so after that day, I was like, you know what? Because I got so many, I was worried. I was like, oh, this is gonna we're gonna crash and burn today. I got so many compliments that day, and it was an eye-opening experience for me. I'm like, my guys are better than I am at this. So for the rest of that summer, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna run one more wedding. I'll set it up for them,
mm,
which I didn't have to, but I'll set it up for you. I'll give you the paperwork. You're ready to go. You just show up and you just hit play. You're good to go. And that summer was smooth and flawless.
wow.
So at some point you have to let go. Now, no one's going to care about your baby more than you are, right?
Hmm.
That's true. But at some point, if you want to scale, if you want to have a life, you're going to have to let go of some of that control and realize that that people out there could maybe even do a better job than you can.
Mm. So that's a great segue to my next question. And you talked about processes. So that's the system side of things, right? But so what
Yes.
specific leadership skills then do you think are needed to build self-managing teams that you can be confident in and they can be confident in so that they truly, you like I said, you can truly be gone on a trip across the world and you're not worried about things falling apart back home.
Yeah, I took this class called Delegation at University of Dayton. It's not a class as in I'm a student there, but rather you would pay as a business to take the class.
Hmm.
And I brought all my managers, and that was extremely eye-opening, and we use those tools today. And essentially, within delegation, there are, if I say, Chris, I want you to just run this golf scramble for me Friday.
Hmm.
And that's it, right? Well, how much level of control do you have? How much level of power? If that's where the conversation ends, your
Hmm.
interpretation of what you're in charge of might be completely different than my interpretation.
Hmm.
So, us defining what does that look like? Essentially,
Mhm.
what's the parameters of what you're allowed to do, how much control you have
Mhm.
versus how much you don't have. That's step one in the process. And then we have a detailed delegation sheet that we fill out. We both sign it, we review it, we put the date of check-ins or the due date.
Mhm.
And then, so let's say I said, Chris, you're in charge of that. You have a limit of $5,000 to spend. You have full control of how it runs. I want to be control of the name. Outside of the name, you have full control. We're going to check in this past Monday and then Friday. It's due.
Mhm.
We both sign it, we both agree on it. And then the key is I'm not allowed to ask you about it.
Mhm.
You're allowed to ask me about it. That's the flip side. But I'm not allowed to ask you about it because that's micromanaging, and we
Mhm.
don't do that. So that was a really important class. And so what kind of delegation tools do you have in the
Mhm.
business? And a lot of because a lot of what does our delegation look like? It could be like me saying, "Hey, do this."
Mhm.
And well, instantly there's a communication barrier because we're not the same people. We have different communication styles. What
Mhm.
you think and what I think are completely different. So
Mhm.
we actually put it to pen and paper. We type this out and we'll actually put it in Google Docs. Um, but we'll type it out and identify the level of control you have, check-in points, and then I'm not allowed, as a leader, I'm not allowed to talk to you about it at all. Because to me, and this is what I learned in the class, to me, I'm going to check in on you thinking that I'm just helping, right? I'm helping. No, 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 no. Some people are like, oh gosh, he's coming at me. I'm unprepared, and it's not good.
Yeah.
So let's say you wanted to go on a week trip, like the person you mentioned. It's like, what delegation things did you establish during there? What control things, the due dates, and all that stuff? Show me where that's typed out and written out and detailed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we don't have an answer to
Yeah.
that.
But you remember, I remember John Maxwell years ago saying, that saying that all's well that ends well. He's like, no, it's really all's well that begins well. And
Yeah.
what you're saying is just that is you're doing that upfront work to clarify things, to
Yes.
make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then you're trusting and empowering, right, in that delegation
Mhm.
for your team member, your manager, whomever's in charge of things to do their job. And I think you're right, Daniel. I think there's so many people that they really want to do a great job. And they want to
Yes.
have opportunities, but they feel like they're under a microscope because even like you said, even the little simple check-ins that you might think are harmless, they may completely interpret wrong. Like you don't trust me or am I really in charge or not? So I mean, those may be mental games they're even playing with themselves that you're not even intending as a leader, but what they experience, what they take from that is, you can't predict that.
Yeah, no, I think in something that the person teaching the class said that she does not like this approach, but I'll say that this is my approach, and maybe it's wrong, but I still do it. When I'm having these conversations, let's say the golf scramble, for example, we've established control, we've established due dates, check-in points, we've typed it up. What I like to do still, as I say, Chris, I want you to explain to me what your level of control is and what. Now, she said that might be condescending, and maybe it could be interpreted that way. But I want to hear from you. What's your version of what you think your control is and what you think your level is? And
Hmm.
we do that all the time when we have work meetings. We'll go around the circle. And I remember I did that once at Great Escape. This is years ago. We had a goal. We are basically figuring out what's the most important thing for the year. And we established is to reach 10,000 Google reviews, right? So we
Hmm.
went around the table. What's the hey, let's repeat. What's the most important goal? We got to the last person and she said something completely different. And we all thought she was joking, but she wasn't. But in her mind, she heard something different, which is
Okay.
great. And now we all open that conversation again and say, okay, well, let's talk about this again. And then we got to the conclusion, which we wanted to get to. So I use that technique. I've been told to not use it. I guess keep in mind how you're asking it. But my managers know why I'm asking it.
Right.
They know that because I tell them point blank, I'm like, I just want to make sure we're all exactly on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is I feel like how you position that's the important part, right? Like it's not you trying, it's not a gotcha, right? It's not a
Right.
gotcha kind of a question. It's you're just trying to make sure because here's the thing, I would assume that even when you want to give 100% control over to a task or, an event or whatever you're leading them on, they may still not feel like they've got that,
Yeah.
or that's not what they heard because, or maybe it's, I'm not in a position to have that much control, so I don't even believe it, even if he's saying it.
Yes, right,
So I think
exactly.
that's an important aspect of what you're doing. It's really what you're doing is you're getting a good pulse on, do they believe that I trust them, they're empowered, that this is theirs to own.
Yep.
And you're right. I mean, you said earlier that nobody's going to care about your baby as much as you do, right? Like that's just reality. But if you can get people to a level of ownership and where they're proud of what they get to do. I actually heard a story the other day. Actually, I think it was on my last episode of the podcast. The guy I was interviewing, Ben, he was talking about somebody, a young man was talking to his parents. They were like in a Walmart or a store, and he was in a company that made sure that let's say it's canned goods. I don't remember the product, but the product gets to the
Mhm.
shelves at Walmart. And he
Yep.
was at Walmart shopping with his parents, and he's like, you see that product is there? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, that's what I do gets things there. And so he
Yeah,
took
yeah.
pride and ownership knowing that he connected the dots, right, between his day-to-day work in the warehouse and the logistics side of things actually had an end result. And so that pride was there. So he wanted to work harder. So I think the same thing is true. Most people they want to see a success. They want to be successful. But like you said, too many leaders probably don't really empower and trust their team enough. And how much different would it be? But I want to bring up this one thing too, maybe to follow up with that is how, how much time does it take to put in on the front end to go through that process? And is that maybe a reason people don't do it?
Yeah, it's certainly a reason that people don't do it because it does take a lot of time, right? And let's say that takes even 4 hours a week. But in my experience, that say 4 hours a week of delegation of tough things, and we want to keep the delegation. I'm not going to give you 50 delegations. We
Hmm.
believe in, hey, what's the most important thing this week? Now, if we focus on that one thing this week, well, guess what? 52 weeks, that's 52 things per person.
Hmm.
You times that by 10 managers, that's 520 important things a
Right.
year. I mean, that's a ton. So now, so it is a lot of work up front, and it seems like, oh, I don't have time for this. But do you have time when that work doesn't get done right? When you're
Hmm.
redoing it, when you're going back to explaining it, the frustration, the lack of
Hmm.
trust, the lack of communication with each other. Well, how much time is that?
Hmm.
The answer is always more time than doing it on the front end
Yeah.
because it has to be.
Mhm. So if you were sitting across the table having coffee or drink with somebody that's a business owner who's really
Mhm.
struggling in this area, right? Like they're saying, Daniel, I want to have the kind of freedom. I want to do the traveling. I want to do the stuff I see you doing,
Mhm.
but I'm really struggling. Like you've talked about processes, you've talked about, doing this delegation process well. Is there anything else that you would kind of ask them or try to assess or try to maybe see from an objective perspective for them that maybe could be helpful?
My personality type is such where I am blunt, good or bad, and so I have been known to ask my entrepreneur friends, you just don't want to let go of control. Maybe that's not an ask, that's a telling them,
Hmm.
and almost invariable, I get the answer is yeah, you're right. So, I think getting them to admit that is a start.
Hmm.
Getting them to say, you know what, I don't want to let go of control because when I give it to my staff, they mess it up. It's like, oh, okay. Well, what exactly are they messing up, right?
Hmm.
Um, so to me, to kind of answer that question, what I always tell my entrepreneurship friends is like, hey, what's one small admin thing that you really don't need to be doing anymore?
Hmm.
Nothing, sometimes they get defensive. Nothing, nothing. Well, come on, let's think about it. And then like, well, I don't really need to do this Monday report or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
I'm like, all right, who can you give that Monday report to? And start small.
Hmm.
Because what you're asking someone who, because we're all a little bit control freaks who are business owners, you're asking someone who doesn't want to let go of control, who's used to doing everything themselves, to start let go and control. That's not going to be an easy battle.
Hmm.
And what I've learned, one step at a time is good because what's going to happen is if let's say you're like, all right, fine, I'll delegate this, and then it doesn't get done right.
Hmm.
What is that business owner going to do? You see, I can't give
Yeah.
anything away. I've got to do it. So what I really want to say, what's that one small admin thing that really anyone can do?
Hmm.
My a 10-year-old can do it.
Hmm.
And then let's delegate that. But let's really work hard on making sure that I've explained that well. And I work with that person of knowing how to do that because you're doing it anyway as an entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
And then after 3 months or so, well, now they've done that. Oh, okay. Well, now I don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
How do I write down the process to do that anyways? And then you slowly start doing that. And you'll find that, oh, wow, like all these things that I thought I had to do, maybe I don't need to do them anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. You're saying that. I'm thinking back to a guy that I coached years ago. He had a small construction company, and he told me, he said, Chris, he said, we haven't had a vacation in years. He and his wife,
Hmm.
and they had a small son that was like 3 years old at the time, I think. And I said, okay, well, we talked about some of these questions, like, well, what's the cause? What's the issue? And basically couldn't get out of the business, right? And so we basically said, well, what's the goal? And so he set a goal. They were going to go on a trip. Like this was like, let's say May or June. They wanted to go on a trip in September. And so I kind of said, well, what do you need to do between now and then to release these things? Get yourself out more, whatever. Because of just the shift of thinking about just kind of what you just said of how can
Hmm.
I start releasing these things. He actually came back one day. He said, "We're not going to get." I think they were going to go to like Tennessee for a weekend or for 4 or 5 days. He's like, "You know what? We're going to Paris for 2 weeks." One day he came back
Yeah.
like, "Wow!" I mean, like that was a big celebration, right? But it was because he got to the point where he was so confident because he had worked through that process
Hmm.
for 8 to 10 weeks or so at the time, I think, that he said, "You know what? I really can leave because I do have good people." I had to just let them run with things and work with them to your point of just making sure they were in a good space so that when I'm gone. And so for him, not only did they have their first vacation in like 3 or 4 or 5 years, but they got to go across the world to Paris and had a great trip for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And that I was like that, I was so happy for him but he was somebody who really embraced what you just said, I think. And it's so important. And yet I know so many small business owners who feel trapped in their business and they are struggling to get away because I always say it's the upfront pain for the long-term gain, right? It's doing
Hmm.
that upfront work so that you can experience that freedom that I think every entrepreneur really wants, but they just don't know how to get there. Let me ask you one more question before we kind of wrap up today is if you're talking to somebody, that was kind of a scenario that somebody's stuck in their business, that's established. What would you say to a brand new entrepreneur, somebody who's getting ready to start? How could they start in a way that would set them up where that doesn't even become such a major issue for them?
Yeah, to me, that's the easy answer is read as much as you possibly can, consume as much as you possibly can, because I can't think of anything that's even unique business-wise anymore. And what you're trying to do, someone's already done it, and they've done it in a way where they've learned all the lessons the hard way. They've written about it, they've done a podcast about it, like a show like you're doing, and don't reinvent the wheel.
Mm,
Like you can read a book that could save you 5 years.
mhm,
And that's what I recommend. Just be a sponge and be like, hey,
mhm,
like, what else? What's everyone else's experience? What have they done and how that worked for them? And then start implementing those things right off the rip.
mhm. I remember you spoke to our young professionals group a few years ago, and I remember one thing you said that really always stuck with me. You said, "Has somebody done what you want to do?" And
Hmm.
then you're like, "Well, then why do you think you can't do it?"
Yeah,
Right? Like
that's true for anything.
you're like,
Yep.
"Look, somebody's already done it, so why can't you go do it?"
Yep.
And I love that because I think we have so many self-limiting beliefs about why I can't. I have all these excuses why I can't do this or I can't do that or they're different, right? Like people listening to this could say, "Well, yeah, Daniel, but he's had all these businesses now. He knows what he's doing, blah blah." It's like
Yeah, maybe. I
but
don't know.
the reality is that not everybody well, you didn't start that way. Like you said, you didn't even have mentors, that
No.
like really set you on pace. So I just want to encourage people, take this advice, right? I mean, I had mentors when I was going out high school into college. They said, leaders are readers, just constantly be a
Mhm.
student, learn and grow. And that was huge for me. And we were joking before we got on here and recorded. It's like all the books I have behind me. It's like, and this is just a fraction, but for me, that's how I learn. I know other people, they like listening to
Mhm.
podcasts, watching videos, whatever. There's no shortage of information out there now, right?
Yeah.
So that can't be an excuse for us. And I just want to encourage everybody to keep investing in yourself, just like Daniel said. So, Daniel, any final words? You've shared some great things for us to think about. Anything
I could
else?
talk all day, Chris. Be careful what you
Oh,
want.
I have one question.
Yeah.
I thought about this earlier. So your business and your model reminds me a lot of what I first read with Tim Ferriss in the 4 Hour Work Week years
Mm,
ago.
yeah.
Did you come across his book or that idea?
Not yet. I haven't read it yet. I need to.
You still haven't read it.
No, shame on me, but no, I have
No,
not.
that no, that's no, but it's interesting to me because basically you have essentially through your experiences and it could be the ups and downs, but you've done what he and a lot of what he talks about is automation and delegation. So you've learned how to do those things. So you because your lifestyle reminds me a lot of what he was talking about 20 years ago when he wrote the book. So the fact that you didn't
Mhm.
even read that's astounding to me.
Yeah, it's
I would
good.
thought you were like, yes, I was inspired by Tim, but you haven't even read
No, no, no,
the book. Well,
no.
that's awesome. So
I'd say if I had to end it really with one message, it would be that what I said earlier. It's like start by looking in the mirror and realizing that you're the captain of the ship, and it's no one's fault but yours.
mm,
Not in a neurotic or self-loathing way.
sure.
Do that. And my personality type is a commander. If you know anything about that, ENTJ.
Mm,
Very difficult to work with sometimes. Well, what I do is I made all of my managers and their assistants do the personality test, and I put all that in ChatGPT.
mm,
So let's say you're a campaigner personality type, and I say, hey, I need to have a conversation with Chris about this and this. Now, how do I approach it? And it knows that you're a commander or a campaigner. ChatGPT will actually tell me the words to use in the format. And I'll do this with managers. We'll be
that's
sitting
awesome.
next to each other, typing how to communicate with each other. And you
Mm,
might think this is absolutely ridiculous, and people could say, "Oh man, this is a proof that ChatGPT is ruining everything." It'll literally. I remember one time I was with these two girls, the events team, and we did this exercise, and it said, "Be blunt with me. Don't fluff anything." And they're like, "Well, we are about to fluff and talk and build you up and to have this conversation next week." And it ended up being one of the best meetings we had because they did that. I typed what they were doing. I typed what I should say, translated into their personality types. So I know that sounds ridiculous, but it all goes
yeah.
back to the delegation thing that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Because for your construction friend type, what's his personality type?
Mhm.
And some people, just the words you use are a foreign language to someone else's personality type, and they hear something completely different.
Mm.
And that's been a really fun exercise, and all the whole team has been absolutely loving the fact, and our communication has never been better because we've been doing that. So,
I would argue that's an amazing use of ChatGPT and AI because I think that it's funny. I just read a thing the other day that basically I think it was like a Fortune 500 company survey, like how they were using AI, and most of it was just like recording meetings and taking meeting notes. That's like the depth of what they're using it. But what you
hmm
just said is so much more powerful. Like I want to communicate better with my employee. This is their personality type. How do I say this? How do I have the hard conversations? How do I have the clarifying, clear conversations, right? Like so I
yep.
love that idea. So that's a huge nugget right there, folks, to take away today. So, well, Daniel, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. It's great to hear different perspectives, and that's why I want to bring guests on and really appreciate your time.
Hey, no, thanks for having me, and yeah, I look forward to connecting soon.
Absolutely. Well, take care, man. Thanks. Take
All
care.
right, bye.
Bye.